Welcome to the Tech Talks Daily Podcast, where you can learn and be inspired by real-world examples of how technology is transforming businesses and reshaping industries in a language everyone can understand. Here is your host, Neil C. Hughes.
Welcome back to the Tech Talks Daily Podcast. It seems everywhere I look at the moment, I'm hearing about customers' rising expectations and an insatiable thirst for digital experiences. In fact, some say experiences are now more important than the product or service itself. Predictably, it seems that every brand is falling over themselves to be an experience maker, and probably run by a team of ninjas and gurus, but this ageing IT guy still has IT blood running through my veins and knows that, especially as a former service improvement manager, that you can only improve what you can measure. But hey, I'm just a tech boring process guy, right? Thankfully, I recently discovered a company that seems to get it. Applause describes themselves as a worldwide leader in digital quality and crowdsourcing testing. And crowdsourced testing. At last, I thought, someone that gets it. Because they help hundreds of leading brands improve the quality of their digital experiences by actually testing with real users on real devices in native languages under real conditions. So I invited Doron Ruveni, Chief Executive Officer and co-founder of Applause, on the podcast today to learn more about how businesses can use tech to not only create, but measure and improve those digital quality experiences. But enough from me. Let's go to California now and get him on the show. So a massive warm welcome to the show. Can you tell the listeners a little about who you are and what you do?
Yeah, Neil. So first of all, good morning. I'm in California, so it's pretty late where you are and it's pretty early where I am. So thank you for taking the time to chat with me. I'm Doron Ruveni. I'm the CEO and co-founder of a company called Applause, which I started almost 12 years ago.
Wow, 12 years. I bet you've seen the landscape evolve dramatically in that 12 years, haven't you?
Yeah, I think the technology landscape has evolved significantly in the last 12 years. You know, when I started, it was kind of funny enough. I started in 2008 and, you know, I kind of raised my first round of funding in 2009. And I remember when we actually closed the deal and signed the term sheet, they basically told me, you know, I don't know if you remember it was the financial crisis of 2009. Yes. They basically told me, you're probably the last entrepreneur we're ever going to fund. So that obviously turned out wrong, right? I mean, obviously there was quite a lot of VC money poured into the space. And I think there's a huge amount of transformation around technology, both from an innovation perspective and a business model. I mean, it's crazy enough to believe that when I launched, I mean, the App Store didn't exist and, you know, iPhone wasn't launched. So yeah, a lot has happened in the last 11 or 12 years.
It really has, since that game changer moment of the iPhone appearing on the scene. And it still makes me smile now when I realise that there's so many kids now that cannot remember a time before an iPhone, before an iPad. And it wasn't that long ago, was it really?
No, not that long ago. And I think the transformation is continuing because you see the interaction between human and software that, you know, started with a kind of a basic keyboard and a screen and then evolved to the kind of touch and swipe, is now evolving to the next iteration, which is actually voice, right?
Yeah.
And then you also see some capabilities of like human gestures on the face that software is starting to realize and understand. So that's a huge transformation in 11 years.
It really is. And for people tuning in and hearing about you and Applause for the very first time, I think I must set the scene and highlight that you're a worldwide leader in digital quality and crowdsourced testing. But can you tell me more about how you're actually helping leading brands improve the quality of their digital experiences by testing with real users on real devices and in native languages under real conditions? Because I think that's a step that so many businesses are probably skipping. So it's so important.
Yeah, no, I absolutely agree with you. So I'll tell you, when the company was started, it started from a very simple problem that we saw in the market. And the problem was, no matter how much we focus on testing software applications, whether it is, you know, mobile or web, and today it's obviously IoT and other connected cars, etc., when software gets to the hands of real users and customers, there's still multiple issues that get found. And it doesn't matter how much money and time you spend on people and technology and innovation. And that's kind of where the idea came of, let's test in the wild on real environment and real configurations. And the way to do that is by building a global community of software test engineers, and then kind of solve that missing step of testing close to where your users and customers live and play. And I think what happened in today's world is that every enterprise, every company, every brand is going through a digital transformation, meaning they're doing more and more business digitally with their customers and users. So that digital footprint and the quality of that is so critical for their brand and their business. Now, what we do is obviously we have a global community of vetted, rated professionals that test on real environment and real configuration. And for every customer, we build a dedicated team that basically meets the customer needs. And that basically means if you want to test in various environment and configuration, and if you want to do customer journeys and omni-channel type of testing, think about ordering your latte from a Starbucks and going through the whole customer journey all the way to picking it up in store. So we focus on that true customer experience to make sure that your customers and your users are getting more applause from their customers and their users. And that's what we're all about, testing in the realm of where customers and users live and play. And that's today true in every industry. So it's not just software companies building software, it's financial companies that are building mobile apps to interact with the customers and users, and it's media companies that launch streaming media capabilities, and it's automotive companies that launch in-car capability. Everybody is focusing on that improving digital experience, and that's what Applause help companies do.
And one of the things that put Applause on my radar was when I noticed that you'd launched Applause Labs, which is described as the industry's largest innovation team dedicated to the quality and testing of applications. But can you tell me more about that announcement and also what excites you about it?
Yeah, so let's start with Applause kind of from a basic perspective. So today we do all that, obviously working with more than 500 enterprise customers worldwide, and the capability that we can do all the testing on an ongoing basis at that scale is because we have a technology platform that basically on one hand side manages the testing team in real time, providing all the metrics and analytics behind it, and on the other hand side integrate with the product development lifecycle. So think about it as a combination of Uber meets DevOps or Uber meets testing. So that's what we do with our technology platform. And for us, very important for us is to continue and innovate. And one of the things that we wanted to do is actually look at new technologies that are coming out there that help us have more scale, do more for our customers, do more for our community of testers. And the way to do that was to launch something that we call Applause Labs, which we launched a few months ago. And Applause Labs is solely focused on bringing innovation into our platform and into the testing industry. And there's many different examples that we'll be launching, in years to come, even early next year, around different types of capabilities that Applause Labs brings into the market, to Applause and beyond, also to open source and other areas around the world.
As we will have business leaders that have tried and failed to innovate, combined with the fact that you have such a large innovation team, what is the secret to innovation and what mistakes do you see most people making? And I appreciate it is a big question, but it's something that I see time and time again.
Yeah, thank you, Neil. I mean, that's a huge question, obviously. And innovation, in order to keep your competitive advantage, and today we are definitely the leader in what we call crowdsourced testing and digital testing for every enterprise. In order to keep your leadership, obviously you need to continue to innovate. And many companies are innovating. From my perspective, I see two things. One, I think in order to innovate, you need to have a focus on innovation. It can't come from your engineering teams that are maintaining the current balance of the software to your customers. And that's why we launched Applause Labs, having it as a dedicated team that focuses on an ongoing basis. They wake up in the morning and they think about innovation. I think the second mistake that companies do is that they need to look at, from my opinion, they need to look at various data. So once you bring in innovation into the market, what you need to do is actually test it with early adopters and real customers and real users. Trust the data that comes from your testing, okay? And then make a decision if this is something that you want to launch to the market. Many times I see different types of companies that are, launching too soon. It may be a great idea, but they launch too soon. They haven't looked at data. And there's been many different trials in the past. I mean, look at the examples like, Google Glass, if you remember from a few years ago. It was a great idea, but the implementation wasn't that great. And I don't think the market caught on, also from a timing perspective. So those are the two things that, I think you need to keep in touch. Have your innovation team separate. That's one hand side, focus only on innovation. And two, make sure that you're close to your customers and users, that you're testing your innovation and trust the data that you get from your early adopters.
And of course, the rise of the experience economy is seeing just about every business that you could name out there to begin to take seriously the fact that they must start creating digital experiences. But it's much more important than that. It's not a case of just delivering these experiences. So the question I've got to ask you is, how important is the digital quality? How important is that to brands today?
Yeah, I think, digital quality is basically the most important thing for brands that are launching different types of digital footprints. And there's various reasons for that. I think reason number one is that the cost of switching today is zero, right? And let's take the most simple example. 5-6 years ago, if you were to switch your bank, your consumer bank, you need to go into the branch, fill a bunch of paperwork, do a bunch of hoops in the air. Today, a few clicks on your mobile application and you close your current account and you transfer over everything to a new account if you're not happy with the digital experience. So the cost of switching is really zero. I think the second thing which is dominant today is that the customer and user expectation from software and from apps is for them to work like a light switch. They just expect them to work. It's the same expectation as you walk in the room, you turn the light switch on and it works. You have the same expectation from your software application. And if it doesn't, you don't really care whether it is a usability issue or a functional issue or a security issue. You just want to make sure that it's secure and it works and it's scalable and it's fast. And again, if not, the cost of switching is zero. So putting all those things together, I think the digital quality is the single biggest differentiator between brands today.
And as a response to that rising importance, you responded by releasing the first and, as far as I'm aware, the only enterprise quality benchmarking tool, which is called the Applause Quality Score, AQS. So can you tell me more about that announcement too?
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the things that we see in the market today is that digital innovators and vice president of engineering of various teams, one of the hardest questions that they have is, when is this software release ready for launch, right? It's very hard for them to know, is it ready for prime time? Can I launch it to the market? Can I have my real users and real customers start working with this? And that's the answer that Applause Quality Score is trying to answer. That's the question that the Applause Quality Score is trying to answer. And basically, we have a bunch of data over the last 12 years from more than 500 enterprise customers and probably hundreds of thousands of test cycles that we've done over those 12 years. And all this legacy data teaches us many, many things about the new version that is going to be launched. And we use that historical data as well as trend line in the current testing of the current build and the current version in order to try to predetermine the potential success of this new version coming to the market. So Applause Quality Score is helping digital leaders actually answer the decision. Is this ready for prime time? Or do I need to do more testing and fix more code before I launch it to the market? And that's a super critical question that no brand and no company is answering today. Today, the only answer is by gut feel. We try to quantify and actually give you an accurate measurement. go or no go.
And for people listening to everything that we've talked about here, do you have any use cases that will help listeners join all that together and understand how it will, or it can empower businesses to meet their customers' high expectations for that digital quality that's so important now?
Yeah, and I have many examples. Let's take a few sample examples. So a big burger chain in the US called Shake Shack, about a year ago, launched their in-store pickup, the capability to order from your mobile phone and kind of pick it up in store. And they wanted to make sure that, one, the software is on par, meaning it actually works. And two, they wanted to make sure that they can manage the readiness in various stores across the US. So they basically contracted Applause in order to, one, test the software, but two, actually go through the whole experience in numerous locations of Shake Shack across North America in order to actually try and measure the user experience. And we did that in early adopters type of Shake Shack location across the US. And when they launched it, both in North America and globally, we helped them make sure that the customer experience, both of the software application as well as the in-store, in-restaurant experience, is exceptional. So that's kind of one example. Another example is a large financial bank in the US, which is called US Bank, which developed a brand new Android and iOS mobile application, in order to compete with some of the other banks in the US, which already had a version. US Bank worked with us extensively in order to make sure that before they actually launch to the market, they actually test the application across different devices with real customers of US Bank using real data. And by doing that, when they actually launched, they received 4.5 stars in the App Store. So basically, the perception and the way the application was received in the market was exceptional. That would not have happened without using Applause, because we helped them find issues before this was actually launched to the market. So those are just two examples from completely different industry. One is a kind of retail restaurant chain. The other one is a top tier bank in North America. And, there's many more examples around, different types of media applications, et cetera, et cetera.
I love that, especially how you're working with diverse clients across multiple industries. But I'm curious, when you're speaking with these customers from multiple industries, are there any trends or what are the biggest challenges that they're all facing at the moment? And how are you guys helping them at Applause?
Yeah, so I think that the biggest challenge that they face is two things. One, they want to make sure that they innovate and release new features fast enough, basically be ahead and beat their competition. And one of the biggest challenges is how do they do that while I maintain quality and customer satisfaction? So that's one of the things that we help them do, meaning they can develop really quickly new features and test them quite extensively. So they have a level of comfort that when they launch to the market a new version, they keep that edge around customer satisfaction. So technology innovation and fast iteration of development is one side. The other side is when they launch new products to the market, they want to make sure that the product, the digital experience of the product is exceptional. Again, in order to get that NPS from the customers. And we talked about digital experience being one of the most single differentiator between enterprises and brands today. And we help them actually test across real devices, real configurations in the wild, use Applause quality score so they can feel really solid when they launch a new application into the market.
Another question I've got to ask, of course, is what's your primary focus going to be next year and beyond as we enter 2020 and a new decade?
Yeah, so I think two things. One, is obviously technology innovation. We are the leader in the market around digital experience and digital quality. We want to provide more capabilities into the market and around that and more innovation. This year, we've also launched 3 new solutions to the market that we didn't have in the past. One is around accessibility testing. And, from our perspective, and I think for brands, enterprise brands across the world, accessibility is super important today because it really helps them tap into new customers and new users that they couldn't tap into if their application wasn't accessible. And we basically help them by having accessibility experts that do an accessibility audit and actually test their application with community member and testers with real accessibility limitations using real readers across real devices to make sure that their application, when they launch to the market, is fully accessible for people with accessibility limitations. So that's one part. The other part is we're doing quite a lot around voice today, and that includes the capability to test different types of Alexa skills as well as Google Assistant capabilities as more brands and more enterprises are starting to launch skills that have their software interact with real human voice. So voice testing is basically a big market for us. And lastly, we're helping a lot of innovators that are launching AI and ML engine collect high quality data as well as tag the data in order to make sure that they train their AI and ML engine, and then at the back end also test the outcome of those engines. So again, those three solutions that we just launched to the market at the latter part of 2019 is a big focus for me in 2020, as well as continued technology innovation around the Applause platform.
And I'm conscious in our, 25, 30 minutes together, we've covered a lot of ground and even covered two pretty big announcements for you guys. So for people that want to find out more about those announcements and everything that we've talked about, and if we have left them with more questions, what's the best way for them to reach out and contact your team and also just check out your website and blog, etc.?
Yeah, so in order to contact us, very simple. It's applause.com. So applause spelled correctly in the English language. And then, there's obviously a contact us page. Feel free. There's a chat. You can fill out the form, whatever works for you. There's quite a lot of content around our solutions and around our customers. You can also contact me directly on Twitter. My direct link on Twitter is @DoronR, DORONR. And I'm happy to answer any type of questions directly to me or to my team. And, it was a pleasure chatting with you, Neil.
You too, because I think it seems everywhere we look at the moment, there's so much talk about the rise of the experience economy, and every business and every brand is trying to create these digital experiences and create and improve of what they offer. But the fact is, of course, is you can only improve what you can measure. So to hear you guys talking about things like crowd testing and measuring digital quality really resonates with me, because that's the only way that you're going to create quality digital experiences. So I love what you're doing here and how you're using technology to deliver that quality. But more than anything, just a big thank you for your time today and sharing your story. Thank you.
Thank you, Neil. And have a great holiday season and a great 2020.
You too. Wow, I just love geeking out on this one because, yes, the experience economy is here, but it's not as simple as creating a few Instagrammable moments that have no substance. Learning how important digital quality is to brands today, how companies such as Applause Labs and their AQS is empowering businesses to meet their customers' high expectations for digital quality. That is the cool bit for me. It's okay saying you create a great digital experience, but be able to prove it and measure it. Now we're talking. But enough from the boring old IT guy here. Send your thoughts over to me on an email to techblogwriter@outlook.com and tweet me @Neil C. Hughes. And I'm also planning on releasing a Christmas message on Christmas morning, so please keep your questions coming in for that. But that's it from me. I'll be back same time, same place tomorrow. Predictable as always. So a big thank you for listening. And until next time, don't be a stranger.
Thank you for listening to the Tech Talks Daily Podcast with Neil C. Hughes. Remember, technology works best when it brings people together.